So I need to find the door the basement key unlocks, presumably the basement door. Here it is. And now I will quickly check whether or not I can get some experience out of this, because I'm close to level 31 and I would like to hit it. And keys. Alright. Let's see. Oh, I forgot. I have to actually, like, check the, oh, jeez. Smack my mic. Actually have to check the, ID of this thing. So it should be 01005233. 1005 space 1. There we go. Ooh, I can get experience out of this. Lovely. Wait, what? Wasn't? Oh wow, it wasn't over there. It really looked like I'd found the spot. But apparently not. And this basement is dark and or spooky. Give me all of the things. Ooh, a DC Journal of Internal Medicine. Awesome. Essential systems. Autodocs powered. Security hologram powered. Non-essential music systems. Computers powered. Whoops. Disengage the main power. There we go. Now let's go find Christine. Who should just be down this way. The autodoc can heal all of the crippled limbs and just do a bunch of other various things for you. I may as well take advantage of it whilst I have the opportunity. There we go. 135 experience for that. Which is not enough. Level up. Exhaustion. Miss Key's insomnia seems to have gotten worse, so we ended up ordering the new Autodoc upgrades. Must have cost Sinclair a fortune. The new programs for the Autodocs ameliorate the effects of exhaustion. Have already spoken to the staff about side effects and dangers of prolonged use. Wanted to make sure they weren't using it to pull double shifts. Sinclair asked if these codes could be downloaded into the public dispensers. The codes aren't compatible, unfortunately. He said he'd look into it. Guess his contacts at Big Mountain will be getting a call soon. And Big Mountain will be a place that we visit in the third DLC. Alright, what's in here? Ooh, more scrap metal. Lovely. Right. Woman before you looks disoriented, pained, and I didn't even get to read it. She looks at you, blinks again, then opens her mouth, but nothing comes out. I'm just going to read these because there's no dialogue. She touches her throat, then traces the scar beneath the chin, and her eyes widen in alarm. That is a big scar. Holy crap. She looks shaken as she glances at the autodoc. She recoils, and her mouth opens, but again, nothing comes out. She looks back at you, and her hands clenched into fists. Her eyes narrow, and she takes a step back, studying you. The woman opens her mouth again, winces, then frowns, and drags her finger across her throat in a slow motion. She looks more angry than pained now. Frowning, she touches her throat again, gently, and then her hand brushes her collar, then her frown deepens. Her eyes narrow as she traces the edge of the collar until she finds the lock. She can depress it with her fingers. She looks surprised, then notices your collar and raises an eyebrow. She frowns, narrows her eyes, then she slowly shakes her head. She shakes her head again and draws a line in the air between the two of you. She shakes her head once, then crosses her arms. She frowns, glances at the collar, looks back at you. She makes a circle with her hands and puts her hand over her eyes and squints. She nods at you, then lowers her hand from her eyes, shakes her head. She draws a slow line between you. She studies you again, then her expression softens slightly. She shakes her head slowly and gives a silent sigh. She nods at you, then raises an eyebrow and nods at the door. Christine nods and steps slightly behind you, waiting. Christine has given you the signal interference perk. This perk grants you a short period of time near a speaker before your bomb collar starts to activate, as well as increasing the amount of time before your bomb collar detonates by 50%. So yeah, she's kind of helpful for things. And a rubber-up. Now, kind of want to get my speech to 85. No, I'll do that. Then buff up my survival to just up to 75. And I think now is definitely the time to start pouring points into science and lockpick. That way I can do the few things in this DLC that will require 100 lockpick or 100 science. Christine stops, glances at the speaker, then glances at your collar, frowning. She taps the collar and then opens or closes her hands really fast. She taps the collar, then opens and closes her hand really fast. Okay. Once she Pip-Boy her collar and then your collar. After a second, she opens and closes her hand slower. She's about to nod, then stops, points at herself, and shakes head. Points at your collar, then hers, then nods at your Pip-Boy. She makes a triangle motion, then the same slow pulse as before with her fingers. She frowns, slowly shakes her head. She opens her mouth, then she makes the motion of tuning a dial, then points at herself. Nods once, then again, points the two of you, then the Pip-Boy. She nods and motions for you to go ahead. Lovely. I really don't want to have to go through her dialogue. But at the same time, there's a perk you can get that is kind of nice. You know, I'm gonna go up the roof. Head out this way. Actually, you know, I'll try and get the... because she gives you a perk as well. Christine raises an eyebrow. She nods slowly, then puts her hand in front of her throat, closes it slowly, then points at you. She shivers slightly and shakes her head. Christine looks blankly at you, then touches her head, smiles, then shakes her head. She waves her hand, then shakes her head. She then nods in the direction of the casino. She nods with an exasperated look, then makes a circle with her hands, repeats it twice more, then raises her hands and waves them like wings. Puts both hands in front of her, then makes a motion with her hands as if writing something. She nods, looks impressed. Shakes her head and makes a motion of two fingers walking. She nods and raises a finger. She nods. She makes a motion with her hands around her chin, drawing it down, and then she raises her hands and clenches them at the sky. An angry, bearded man. She points at your Pip-Boy. She nods, looks concerned, taps the side of her head, and expands her hands. She nods, then circles her ear. She nods, frowns. She frowns, raises two fingers, and has them walk together. Then she looks down on the two fingers, and her face becomes angry. Then she chops her hand down and draws the two fingers apart. One of the fingers she points at herself. She nods. Frowns, shakes her head, and even more so at husband. She hesitates, then waves her hand. She nods, and looks at you a little surprised. She raises an eyebrow, looks at you. She nods slowly, studying you. She seems to be gauging you again. She makes a slow circle motion after a moment, taps her wrist. I had other questions. Christine frowns, then pauses and traces one of the scars on her head with her finger. She then makes a motion as if picking up a pencil, tries to write, then shakes her head. She pauses, then draws a jagged symbol like electricity in the air, and then puts on an odd, staring face. She keeps the blank face for a second, and slowly blinks. Looks around. She looks at her hands, shakes them, then lets them go limp. She nods, slowly, and then makes the motion of typing and drawing X's and lines in the air, and then gives a thumbs up. She nods. Here we go. Christine shakes her head, then pauses and makes a small circle with her thumb and forefinger. She points at you and makes the motion of putting something in her palm. She examines the chip for a second, raises it to her eye, then turns it to the side, gauging its diameter and width. She runs her finger over the surface, slowly checking the engraving. She then tosses the chip back to you. She then pretends to look around, see something on the floor, then pretends to bend down and pick it up. She then looks at you and nods. She smiles, nods. She stands still for a second, then stops, and slowly makes the motion of bending down and scooping something up. Then she holds the imaginary object in her hand as if heavy and puts it in front of her as if on a table. She then hefts what looks like a small box and pours it on top of the object, looks at it, then reaches down and holds up a small O. She smiles, nods. She points at your Pip-Boy and makes a motion of opening it and up and removing something from it. Then raises her hand and makes the motion of smashing it and holding up the remains. She nods, impressed. Then she points at you, then her, and makes a circle. She nods. She then makes a series of hand motions to represent weight and amounts, enough so you think you could do it on your own. And I have now learned the coin operator perk, allowing me to make Sierra Madre chips, metal slugs, at workbenches using fission batteries and scrap metal. That's about it. You know, there's only like 2 more, so we'll do those. She points in the direction of the main gate, then points at your collar, shakes her head, and locks her hands around her neck. Then her hands lash outwards, fingers splayed, and she rolls her eyes back. After a second, she turns back to you, shakes her head. She nods slowly, as if thinking. Then she raises an eyebrow, looks skeptical, then shrugs. Points downwards, makes a circle around her, then back to the same spot, and then her finger drifts, circling, and she makes a mock frown. She shakes her head, points at herself, then points at you, nods. She nods. But not you. She nods once. She slowly shakes her head. She points at the ground and moves each leg outward, straddling the place where she's pointing. She nods. Frowns, makes a mock motion of loading a gun, then hefting it to her shoulder and taking aim at something in the distance. Then she pauses, makes a sweeping circle, then puts her arms in a circle around it, as if covering it. She looks frustrated, then makes a dismissive wave. I didn't even know there was a perception check of 8. Hold on. Can I get back to that? No, I cannot. Okay. She moves her finger in a circle, frowns, then drags her hand down over her eyes. She raises them again, points to you. She She nods, raises an eyebrow, points at you, makes a circle, then points at your feet. She smiles, nods. She repeats the circling motion again. This time, she lowers her hand and circles her finger inward, until she's pointing at the spot between you. Still pointing at the ground between you two, she raises an eyebrow. She waits. After a second, she raises her eyebrow again. She looks at you for a second, studying you, then nods. Points at you, then points at the casino, and she slowly shakes her head, then points in the direction of the main gate. She looks at you for a moment, glances at your collar, shrugs. She then lightly grabs her neck with both hands, holds it for a moment. Then her hands fall away, she looks back at you, looks at the exit, and nods. She slowly shakes her head, then points at the ground. She frowns, glances in the direction of the casino, then the exit, then back in the direction of the casino. She shrugs, without striking no conviction. She isn't looking at you when she does. Okay. And because I'm curious about dialogue options, I'm actually going to reload my save and go through all of the dialogue options again. And this time, I might actually have something on me to give me enough perception. I don't. So we'll hold off on... Yeah, so I'll hold off on doing those dialogue options until I get back to the fountain, where I'm fairly certain I had some mentats, so I can just pop those, and I should